Episode 136, Chris DeSantis. Good morrow, and welcome back to The Realm. I am epic fantasy author J.V. Hilliard, your friendly neighborhood scribe, and I know many of our viewers and readers enjoy sci-fi, and we do a lot of talking on this show about fantasy adventure. We're going to have a sci-fi author on, one who works in his own bit of sci-fi, and also is a guy that has a trilogy out. So if you're interested in the sci-fi side of sci-fi fantasy genre, stick around for our author and special guest, Chris DeSantis. Chris, welcome to The Realm.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. You know, you and I have a very similar background, right? We both work in DoD and tech-related stuff. And I am guessing that was some of the inspiration behind some of your sci-fi. And we could get into a little bit of your favorites later, but for now, let's talk about your inspiration for your books here. Did it come from stuff that you were doing at work, or were you always interested in tech and the future of tech?
It's both. I was always interested in tech and sci-fi in particular. You know, Star Wars, Star Trek, Babylon 5. I was pretty good at math, so I ended up going into tech. Went to school for mechanical engineering. Was a software engineer for a while. Just those two areas, and have definitely influenced my writing and my love for science fiction.
But there's another connection here. It's just not the DoD and the tech stuff between the two of us. I know you're a Dungeons and Dragons geek like me. I've been playing since I was 10. You got a little bit later start, but has the storytelling as a dungeon master helped you as an author? Does that verbal communication translate for you into written, or has it been a hindrance?
So I was late to it. I thought Dungeons and Dragons was too nerdy for me. So yeah, my brother-in-law recruited me, and he recruited me for his Star Wars style Dungeons and Dragons game. And they were all like military, ex-military guys. So it was super hardcore, like R-rated Star Wars, lots of blowing up stormtroopers and things like that. So it was lots of fun. And I realized how great it is and how much Dungeons and Dragons and like that role-playing game can be very helpful with writing. There's definitely, like, when you're writing, you're your own game master, your own player, but having that skill to like look at different angles, understand motivations of characters, you can get these interesting perspectives that help you just be a better writer.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's really helped me in my writing. But you mentioned something about the challenge of the world building that happens. And I've seen it, and I've been able to translate it into my fantasy adventure novels. As a sci-fi writer, what are the challenges that you didn't foresee when you chose that as your genre? What are some of the challenges you face as an author in the sci-fi genre?
Sure. Well, you're looking to the future generally, and a lot of times it's, what is the technology? Where are we going to go? If you look at like old movies like Star Wars, Star Trek, if you look at the Alien movies, a very futuristic kind of blue collar environment, but you look at the technology they have, and then technology we have nowadays, like where is AI going to be? AI's last couple of years is like completely just gone haywire. Where is this going? Okay, now predict that 50 years, 100 years, 200 years from now, AI can create content now. So where is writing going, and where is all this stuff that human beings have done? What is the world going to look like 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now? Those particular aspects that I mentioned for science fiction can make it a little challenging beyond just crafting a narrative with compelling characters. You have these kind of real world things you need to solve if you're putting that in your book.
So Chris, tell everybody about your trilogy, what it's about, and why they should buy it.
Well, I have the first two books here. We got the Z Team in book 2, Starlight. So it's the misadventures of a freighter crew as they are pulled into like galactic consequence and intrigue.
Chris, what makes your books different than others in your genre? Is there something specific that you've done and built into your novels that is unique to your world? Or have you found inspiration and tweaked it like, many authors do, so that people that are reading it feel familiar with it and it's easier to accept, especially when you're asking them to suspend belief on all this stuff just to put themselves into a fantasy or a sci-fi world?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I want to do with my sci-fi trilogy, I want to take all these familiar tropes, science fiction tropes that people love and expect in the books, and put a spin on some of them to get something unique and interesting. And there's all of it has an underlying layer of humor and some satire underneath, kind of poking fun at the things we know and love, but it's compelling and thrilling at the same time. So it's like eating something that you loved as a kid. You're having a delicious cookie or something like that. You know what you're getting. You love it. But maybe there's a little bit of something extra in there too.
You mentioned Star Trek and Star Wars a couple of times. I know they're your favorites, but have other characters in those shows or other books that you've read inspired characters in your own writing? Have you like a riff off of Darth Vader somewhere, or a riff off of Captain Kirk and dropped them in and kind of reskinned them a little bit?
For sure, there's inspiration. So, I mean, the obvious one is the captain. He's the captain of the freighter. He's the main character. He's like the over-the-hill Han Solo type, who's maybe not as cool, and he's always got his hair gelled, and he's very good. He's a top player in this game called Galaxy Battles. But in real life, he's this mundane freighter captain who's kind of not that great and kind of crashes the ship on occasion. And then there's other plays on characters, like security people and administrators.
Red guys.
Yes, there's the whole spectrum. Yeah, for sure. It's pulling from all these different sources, like I said before.
We did a deep dive into your stuff and into the psyche behind it. Let's go back up to the 30,000 foot for a second. And let me ask you a pretty general question, but one that I think is important. What's the most exciting thing for you about being an author?
It's just getting to implement the crazy stuff going on in your head, right? You read stories, you consume things, you see things going on in the real world, and you just have this need to I got to express it somehow. I don't know. It's just like something inside. You just have this itch, like, okay, I need to come up with
passion, right?
Yeah.
I get you. Well, Chris, hey, we're coming to that time of the show where we play a lightning round with everybody. And I know you're a big sci-fi guy, so I've got some questions coming at you, Star Wars versus Star Trek. So let me know if you're ready to dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, easiest one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Babylon 5. Just kidding. So in the end, I have to say Star Wars, because I think it's just easier to sit down and consume any Star Wars. Star Wars might be more fun to just sit down and watch. Yeah. So I think Star Wars by a hair. Definitely not, hating on Star Trek though.
All right, so crew of the Enterprise versus crew of the Millennium Falcon. And I'll allow you to include Luke, Leia, C-3PO, and R2-D2 in the crew of the Falcon, because I think that counts. Obi-Wan wasn't there long enough for it.
That's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with the Millennium Falcon just because of the Force.
All right. How about your favorite Star Wars character and your favorite Star Trek character?
Oh, boy. All right, Star Wars... I think Ahsoka. She's just got a very compelling story.
That's very modern, man.
She's just a great character. And then for Star Trek, I do like Geordi because that visor is just cool. And I have
pretty badass, right?
I have terrible vision. I've had contacts since like 3rd grade. So he was just kind of like cool as a cucumber, and I don't know, that something about that visor is just cool.
Oh, and the name Geordi LaForge. It just
actually, the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, last question before I let you go. Captain Kirk on the Enterprise versus Darth Vader on the Imperial flagship. Who wins that space battle?
I'm probably have to go with Star Wars again. You got the Force. That Imperial Star Destroyer is pretty big. I think it's good size, bigger than the Enterprise.
Too technical. Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming on The Realm. Before we let you go, tell everybody how they can find you and where your books are available.
Yeah, my books are available on Amazon, ebook and print. I'm online at Chris DeSantis author. You can find me in all the socials.
Well, hey, man, thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure. And come back when book 3's out.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, Chris is a nerd like all of us, and he's a nerd after my own heart. And speaking of nerds, I'll be at the GalaxyCon Nerdathon July 25th through the 28th in Raleigh. And I'll be announcing the spinoff of one of my more popular characters from the Warminster saga. It's going to be called the Black Rose. So if you're a fan of the assassin in Canis Druwaith, look out. His origin story is coming at you at that con. I'm looking forward to seeing you there, and you can pick up a copy and I'll sign it for you. And to our followers, thanks again for lending us your ear today. And until next time, I am still J.V. Hilliard, and may your gods go with you.